For 4 years, 16 kids lived a few steps off the road in a little Ohio village. Neighbors right there. And one man who lived nearby said he ain't never, not one time, seen a single child at that house. Anybody. A woman said she caught a glimpse of a couple of them at a yard sale one time, noticed they looked dirty, and figured, hey, kids get dirty playing outside. That was the story everybody told themselves so they could sleep. She ain't sleeping now. Because on June 30th, 2026, the whole village found out what was on the other side of that wall. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. The man who walked in first, he raises livestock for a living. Cows, animals, the whole thing. And when he had to describe what he found in that house, the only comparison he could reach for, he said into a microphone for the whole world to hear, most of our livestock was kept in better conditions than the children. His cows had it better. Let me tell you something, sit with that one for a second. This is beyond dark cases, and this is the room in Hamden. If you're staying with us, take a second right now and hit subscribe so you don't miss where this goes next. And while you are here, tell us on the comment where in the world you are watching from. It matters to us to know how far this story have reached, and we read every single one. So here's how it starts. And this is the part that gets me. The deputies who pulled up to that house on Omer Street. They weren't even there for the kids, didn't know a thing about no kids. They came to serve a summons, a piece of paper, on something completely unrelated. Knock on the door, hand it over, keep it moving. That was the whole job. But then one of them looked past the doorway into a back room, and what he saw stopped everything. 16 children, the youngest, a year and a half old, still a baby, and the oldest, 18 years old, a grown young woman who, the investigators would come to find out, could not spell her own name, couldn't write it. Some of the kids in that house couldn't talk at all. 16 of them. Most of them kept, for most of the last 4 years, inside one room. And I need you to picture this room, because the size is the whole thing. 12 feet by 12 feet. That's 144 square feet, smaller than a prison cell they build for one man. Now put 16 children in it. Do the math, and every kid's got about 9 square feet to call their own. Smaller than a twin mattress. That's before anybody lays down, before anybody moves. And human waste, I'ma keep it clean, but I'ma keep it real. Human waste was found all through that house. Bugs, filth, the kind of thing you can't describe without people thinking you're exaggerating. One person who was there said, days later, he still couldn't get the smell out of his head. Make it make sense. 16 kids, one room, 4 years, in a village of less than 800 people where everybody's supposed to know everybody. So the question that dropped on that county that morning was simple. How? How do 16 children just disappear in plain sight in America and stay gone for years? Anyways, to answer that, we can't start in 2026. We got to go all the way back, almost 20 years. It starts with a wedding. West Virginia, spring of 2008. The groom was 18. His name, Gary Siders. The bride was 15 years old. Her name was Elizabeth. And this was all above board, mind you. The court records show her parents gave consent. A judge signed off. The whole thing was legal in that state. She'd finished the 8th grade. He'd made it to the 9th. And far as any record shows, that's where the schooling stopped for both of them. Right there. 2 months after that wedding, Elizabeth had her first baby, 15 years old. And do the timeline. She was already pregnant, standing up there saying her vows. Now here's what folks close to the family say she was running from. Elizabeth, they say, came out of a hard home herself, a rough situation as a teenager. And the way one relative put it, she didn't get forced into the Siders family. She ran to it, escaped into it, because it looked like something better than what she came from. Her own attorney said she told him more than once that she wanted a big family, said kids were a gift from God. So what? So the babies came, and they kept coming, almost one a year for most of the next 18 years. And I know what you're thinking, but hold on, because for a minute this looked normal. It really did. Gary's parents, the grandparents in this story, Gary Sr. and Christina, they'd already raised 4 other daughters, grown women now, out in the world, living regular lives. One relative called them successful members of society. There's photos of these grandparents from just a couple years back. Clean, put together, looking like anybody's people. A normal American home is how the family described it. And that's the thing that don't sit right, that you got to hold in your head the whole time we go through this. Somewhere in there, this family that looked ordinary stopped standing still, and they stopped being seen. Because here's what the Attorney General of Ohio said, flat out. The Siders had been moving around that state since 2008, county to county, and they were, in his words, good at hiding these kids. Now think about what that takes. They didn't just move. They moved in a way that left no trail, no medical records, no government paperwork, no school records that some caseworker could follow. They drifted through Ohio, even went out of state, as far as Wisconsin at one point. And every time it looked like a system might catch up to them, they'd pull up stakes and vanish into the next town. Start the clock over somewhere fresh, where nobody ever heard the name Siders and had no reason to look twice. And you can actually watch it happen. One time, right there in the public record, fall of 2021, a county called Gallia. The school district over there flags a problem. 6 of the Siders kids are on the rolls at a local elementary school, and almost 2 months into the year, not one of them had shown up. Not a single day. So the county does what it's supposed to do. They notify the parents. Parents don't respond. So they file 6 truancy complaints, 1 for every child that's missing, and they send the sheriff out to serve the papers. Deputies pull up to the house, and the house is empty. Gone. The family had already moved on. And by the start of the next year, with nobody left to charge, the county just closed the cases out. Quietly. Done. Oh, so now you see the pattern. A system noticed. A system reached out its hand. And by the time that hand got there, the family had already carried those 6 kids off to somewhere else. The paperwork didn't get closed because the children were safe. It got closed because the grown folks couldn't be found. I said what I said. That was the whole playbook. Somebody gets concerned, you disappear, and every disappearance bought 'em more time. Eventually, the moving stopped. They settled in Hamden, Vinton County. And listen, of all the places to end up, this one fits. Vinton County is the least populated county in the entire state of Ohio. Rural, quiet, Appalachian country, a place where the grand jury only meets every other month because there just ain't enough crime to justify meeting more than that. Easy place to be overlooked, easy place to disappear in plain sight, and that's exactly what they did for about 4 years. Which brings us right back to those neighbors, the man who never saw a child, the woman at the yard sale who told herself, hey, kids get dirty. For 4 years, in a village where everybody knows everybody, 16 children lived a few steps from the road, and not one person out there knew their faces. But behind those walls, the count was still climbing, because there were babies born into that family that nobody outside ever saw. And there were 2 of them that this family would try the hardest to forget. So the kids were hidden. That's the story so far, right? No school, no doctors, no records, neighbors who never saw a single face, locked away from the whole world, except a few of the older ones had phones, and they were posting. Let me tell you something. This is the part that flips the whole thing on its head. Some of those older kids had quiet little social media accounts, and if you know how to look, if you follow who they follow and who follows them back, you can find them. There's a video that looks like it was shot right outside that house on Omer Street. You can see the walkway that runs down to the driveway. So these accounts are real. These are the kids. And what were they posting? One caption read, "How I felt after feeling uncomfortable hugging my own dad." Another one, "Everyone yelling at me like, damn, I'm trying." And this one, a little girl. Me seeing a little girl spending time having fun with her dad. I used to be a daddy's little girl. And one more, over a clip of a father screaming at his kid, "My dad since I started being a teenager because I changed, and I'm not the little girl he used to love anymore." Now, could that just be regular teenage stuff? Kids fussing with their parents? Maybe. On any other day, in any other house, you'd scroll right past it. But knowing what we know now, knowing what was on the other side of that wall, those don't read like teenage angst no more. Those read like breadcrumbs. Low-key screaming for help in a language nobody around them was listening to. They were on the internet the whole time, and nobody came. Not until June 30th. So let's talk about June 30th. Because how the deputies ended up at that door, that's its own story, and it ain't a pretty one either. Remember I told you they came to serve a summons on something unrelated? Here's the something. 1 month before the raid, the father, Gary Siders, got charged with 4 counts of public indecency. 4 separate incidents, and these wasn't spread out over years either. All 4 happened in the span of about a week in the month of May. The charges say he recklessly exposed himself. Now, the specific details, we don't have them. His attorney went to a judge and got all the court documents in that case sealed, locked up tight. So what exactly happened out there, we can't tell you, because the record's closed. But here's what we can tell you. Those indecency charges got formally filed on June 30th, and on that same day, the local sheriff's office got the green light to go serve Gary a summons at his home. So that's the paper. That's the unrelated thing that put deputies on that porch. A grown man's exposure case is the only reason anybody looked behind that door. Make it make sense. The deputies show up to serve that summons, and that's when they flag it. The condition of the home and this crowd of children who all seem to be packed into a single room. Within hours, all 16 kids, ages 18 months to 18 years, were being pulled out of that house. And oh, so now, this wasn't even the first time the law brushed up against this family. Back in 2021, Gary and one of the grandparents caught truancy charges in that other county, over 6 of the kids missing school. We talked about that. And there's more. Reporting says a children's services agency in a county near Vinton actually visited this family at one point. And after that visit, the family relocated, moved again. Some believe that was on purpose. Get gone before somebody comes back and starts asking about the kids. The Attorney General said it himself. This family was good at hiding these kids, and every time somebody official got close, they'd slip the grip and disappear. This wasn't overnight. This was years. Years of dodging the exact people whose whole job was to catch something like this. But on June 30th, the dodging ran out. Now, I got to prepare you for this next part, because when law enforcement walked into that house, even they weren't ready. The Attorney General, Andy Wilson, said even as deputies got set to go in, they had no idea there'd be 16 children in there. Nobody expected that number. And when they got inside, what they found. Wilson didn't soften it. He stood in front of the cameras and said, "This is pure evil. What we saw down here today is pure evil. The children, he said, were covered in bugs and squatting and had that like distant look in their eyes. He said they looked almost like feral animals. And he said something else that I want you to really hear because it tells you how thin the margin was. He said, I think if they would have waited another 24 hours, there was a very high probability that we'd be dealing with a death or multiple deaths of these children of one day. That's it. These kids were one more day from somebody not making it out. The medical situation was that serious. 7 of the 16 were taken to hospitals over in Columbus. 2 of them were so far gone they had to be airlifted, flown by helicopter to level 1 trauma centers. 1 child listed in critical condition, and the number one concern for the officers standing in that house wasn't evidence, wasn't arrests. It was just getting these kids medical help before it was too late. And I keep coming back to the sheriff, the livestock line. Most of our livestock was kept in better conditions than the children. He called the whole scene just a disgusting scene. This is a man who deals with animals telling you his animals had it better. The Attorney General put a bow on it that stuck with me. He said, it's the type of thing that we're not used to seeing here in America. Now, here's a detail that'll knock the wind out of you. There were no cages in that house. And you might hear that and go, okay, well, at least it wasn't that. But think about what it means that no cages is the good news. That's how low the bar dropped. The absence of cages is what passed for a bright spot. When at least they weren't locked in cages is the reassuring part of your story. You already know how dark the rest of it is. And the 4 adults, they were all right there, living in that same house. A mother, a father, a grandmother, a grandfather, 4 grown people. And the state says they walked past that room every single day. So the kids get pulled out. They get rushed to hospitals. The 4 adults get arrested. And now the county's got a whole other problem on its hands. Because determining exactly what these children went through means you got to be able to talk to them. And a lot of these kids can't. The sheriff said it plain. Some of them could communicate a little, some not at all. The oldest, that 18-year-old, couldn't write her name. How do you build a case around victims who can't tell you what happened to them? That question, that's where this thing gets complicated. And we'll get to how they even begin to answer it. But first, I told you the count was still climbing behind those walls. I told you there were 2 this family tried hardest to forget. It's time we talk about them. So let's talk about the 2. Elizabeth had her first baby at 15, and from there, almost 1 a year. 3 sets of twins in the mix. When deputies counted the kids in that house, they got to 16. But 16 was never the real number. Back in November of 2022, Elizabeth gave birth again. Twin girls. Faith Lee and Bailey Lee. They came way too early, about 24 weeks, and they were born conjoined, joined at the chest, facing each other, likely sharing at least one vital organ. They lived about an hour, both of them. Gone the same day they arrived. Count them, and Elizabeth is believed to have given birth 18 times. From 15 to 33 years old, this woman was pregnant or holding a newborn for almost every one of those years. No record of a job, no school past the 8th grade, no point where she lived on her own, away from that family. 18 births. 2 little graves nobody outside that house even knew to grieve. I said I'd tell you about the 2 they tried hardest to forget. That's them. Now to the courtroom, and I'ma keep this tight. 4 adults. The mother, Elizabeth, the father, Gary, and his parents, the grandparents. Each one charged with 16 counts of child endangering, a felony. All 4 pleaded not guilty, bond set at $300,000 apiece. Add up all those counts, and these folks are looking at anywhere from 16 to 128 years in prison. But watch what happens next. The grandfather, 73 years old, collapses on his way to a court hearing, ends up in the hospital with something serious, and because he hasn't been convicted of anything, the cost of his medical care falls on the county. Vinton County, the poorest county in the state, remember, can't afford it. So they let him out. Turned his cash bond into a promise to show up, put a GPS monitor on him. His own attorney then asked the court to check whether the man is even mentally fit to stand trial. That question's still open. And Elizabeth? She's fighting to get her bond lowered. Her whole stated goal, her attorney says, is to reunite with her kids. And here's where it gets complicated. Even her own lawyer won't call it clean. Asked flat out if she's a victim in all this, he said his office isn't sure. But he pushed back hard on that pure evil language. His words, evil requires malice. And the person that I saw there, Elizabeth, she doesn't have that in her eyes. At least from this initial meeting. Victim or villain, her own attorney can't tell you yet. So I'm damn sure not going to tell you what to think. That one's yours. Now, if this whole thing sounds familiar, there's a reason. A retired detective who worked the Turpin case out in California, 13 kids found starved and shackled a few years back. He looked at this Ohio situation and said the parallels brought it all flooding back. The hidden kids. No school, no records. The bodies wasting away. But he flagged one difference that ought to scare you. In the Turpin house, the older kids had built a little system, taught the younger ones a few things, held each other together so most of them could at least speak and read a little when they got out. In Ohio, investigators say several of these children can't speak at all, and the oldest can't write her name, which means the damage here might run even deeper. So where does that leave 16 kids? They're in the state's custody now. Therapeutic foster care, likely scattered because no single home takes 16 children, and Vinton County damn sure doesn't have the families for it. The state sent $1 million just for these kids, and folks who do this work say that's a drop in the bucket. The doctors say the young ones, the babies, the toddlers, they got a real shot. Young brains bounce back. Put a kid in a warm home with food and love, and a lot of that damage starts to heal. But the older ones, that's the heartbreak. That 18-year-old who can't write her name. She's a legal adult who was never allowed to become one. What happens to her? Nobody's answered that yet. Because here's the thing the Turpin case already taught us, and it's the note I'll leave you on. Rescue is not the same as recovery. Getting these kids out of that room was one day of work. Giving them back the years that were taken, that's the part that takes forever. That's the part nobody's watching a camera for. And whether Ohio gets it right this time, we don't know yet. 16 kids walked out of that house in Hamden. The world finally saw their faces. The least we can do is not look away now. I'm going to keep following this one. The grand jury, the competency ruling, whatever comes next for these kids. So if this is your first time here, this is Beyond Dark Cases, where we sit with the ones the world forgot, the cases that still don't add up. Do me a favor, subscribe, leave a comment, tell me where your head's at on this one. And if you know something about a case that deserves the light, you know where to find me. Until the next one, take care of each other and keep your eyes open, because sometimes the worst thing in the world is happening a few steps off the road, in a quiet little house where everybody swore they never saw a thing.